Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 54, Growing Great Relationships. All right, so all month we've been talking about healthy versus unhealthy communication, and we talked about manipulation, and we talked about nuanced control versus being vulnerable and connecting and all that good stuff. So I want to kind of pull it all together today because it's not just about communication, it's about our relationships. And yes, our communication and our behavior comprise how we operate in relationships, right? So today I really want to get into some wonderful things that you can practice or continue practicing to cultivate great relationships in your life. And again, as with every episode I say, this is by no means the only ways to do it and not an exhaustive list. But hopefully it can become a really great springboard for you to just refocus on people you love, people in your life that you care about, and loving yourself. Because as you're going to see, that's also a part of the process. Okay, let's get started. All right, so let me talk about what I mean about connection. I think connection, as opposed to just talking at someone, talking to them about it or that or them or what have you, means learning more about the other person. Now, if we got honest, we may do this a lot when we first get to know someone because we want to find out about them. Now, of course, that's kind of selfish, right? Because we want to see, could they be a good friend or partner to me, a good colleague? We want to know more about them for ourselves. And so part of the work today is to kind of really think about, am I showing genuine interest in actually learning about the other? It's just one of those things. You've heard this a million times. Boy, when you're on the other side of that equation and someone shows genuine interest, how amazing that can feel. The new research shows we really want to be seen and noticed and acknowledged and accepted almost more than we want to be loved. So showing that you're really interested in learning about the other, and that doesn't mean interrogating. We talked this month about how questioning can put someone on the defensive, but owning your genuine interest, like tell me more about that. Use empathy statements. So then what happened? You ask them. Oh, and then, so where are you going to go from here? And what are you thinking about what lies ahead for you? And, what's your backstory? Like, how did you get here? Tell me about your journey. I really want to hear about that. Do you see how when I say it that way, I'm still owning that I want to hear about that? And the ball goes to them, and they're in a place of choice how much they want to share. So this is not a license to go in and interrogate folks. It's just showing genuine interest. Remember the golden rule. Show genuine interest that you would want to have expressed to you from others. Connection to me also means sharing deeper meaning like we've been talking about. Not just keeping the connection on the surface, but being brave enough to go beneath the surface and talk about vulnerable things and things that could bring up conflict and, setting boundaries with folks and, talking about the actual relationship, God forbid. Connecting means sharing great moments that we allow to happen. And I was just talking to a client about this yesterday. They had a lot of trauma in their life and their family. The way they coped was they just didn't talk about it. So therefore, they really didn't talk about a lot of vulnerable things because once you open the door, the fear is, oh my God, I'm just going to be a mess and I'm going to implode and what have you. So we find a million ways to run from the moment. And for them, it was they couldn't be present because even when they were sitting with someone they loved dearly and it could have been a really great moment, they were distracting themselves by running in their head, quote unquote, focusing, okay, what do I have to do tomorrow and what's going on next week? And, oh gosh, I have so much to get done tonight. And what about that scary situation and worrying about this and what about that? So allowing is the opposite of that. Nope, I'm just going to be here now. And if I start to get distracted, I'm just going to try to bring my mind back, just like in meditation, right? You know, when we kind of go away in our head and start thinking about things, you just bring it back gently. So allowing means letting go of control of the moment and just letting it be. I know you've had moments in your life that were either hilarious or profound or something in between, and they stick with you because you were emotionally present. So both hemispheres of the brain were connected. You remember that. It meant something for you. It's because you were present and you allowed that moment to happen. Connection means, I think, more joy and serenity. Remember the client I just spoke of? That's a ton of anxiety going on for that poor person. Joy and serenity requires that we practice sitting and being and not being in worry and fear and trying to control other people in the moment or control outcomes in our head. And it takes practice. If it's hard for you to sit still, it's going to be a process, but you will get there. Connection and relationships to me means as well more awe and appreciation for who they really are and not what we want them to be. And that's a tough one. As a mom, I know you can have those moments where you're just busy and you're trying to get dinner together and you want them to do their homework and you're not focusing on the hilarious jokes that they're telling as they're sitting there not doing their homework. But let me tell you, these moments will be gone soon enough. Try to relish them. Really do. It's great. You will miss them in years to come. All right. So that's what I think connection means. So let's talk about brass tacks. How do I really practice all of the moving parts of connection and all of the many facets, rather? And you may already be great at some and not others, and you can be wherever you are. And if you're struggling with all of them, don't give up hope. The great thing about this is stuff we actually have control over, which I love that. Even if you've just been a crappy friend all month because you've been really stressed out and overwhelmed and busy, guess what? You can still pick up your phone and you can still send a text and say, hey, sorry, I've been MIA. I miss you. How are you? Or we can walk in the living room and curl up to our partner and say, I appreciate you and I miss you. I know it's been a busy week. So one of the ways we can show them that we are trying to connect with them and bring our own vulnerability to the table is eye contact, is an obvious one. And turning my body toward them. So I don't have a phone in my hand texting at the same time. You know, I'm showing them that they matter. They matter more than my stress at the moment too. And guys, that's hard. To not be distracted by very real fear, very real worry about yourself, your loved ones, your community, our country, the world. You just practice mindfulness here, not to beat yourself up when you stray, but try to make sure you're working on your eye contact. Again, not staring, not making them uncomfortable, but trying to connect with them. You're looking at their face at least. Now, granted, when someone is sharing something extremely difficult, some people prefer that you not look at them the whole time, and that's okay. You can kind of look down and then glance up. It depends. But work on your eye contact. You know, that's making you more vulnerable, and it's helping you to connect. All right. The next one, obvious I statements, right? I've been talking a lot about emotional honesty. You know, getting into where we really are underneath. You know, no acting out, no displacement, no manipulation, no projection. It's me being direct and clear with others, like telling them my absolute truth, telling them the truth, like what I really think, what I really feel, what I think I need in the moment, like doing the best I can to assess where I really am. And that includes what I'm okay with and what I'm not, guys. Remember, No passive-aggressive behavior here. If you're going to do that, you're not ready to connect. Go in the other room, have a seat, sit down, journal, do whatever you need to do, because you're not ready to practice real connection. Because the last thing we want to do, and this is really important, is you do not want to set up someone in your life and give them the vibe that you are getting ready to create an emotionally safe moment and then not, by slipping in some kind of snarky or innuendo or some kind of passive-aggressive crap. Don't do that, because they're not going to want to open back up to you. Remember we talked in the last episode about being controlling? That's controlling in a way that we got to get that out there, because here's what's happening. We're not expressing it at the appropriate moment in the appropriate way. So guess what? I'm going to slip it out sideways to you right now while I'm supposedly, quote unquote, talking to you about this other issue. This is a very common thing, and it's kind of sad because when people do it, it just tells me that they just don't have the courage yet to really confront someone in a loving way and say, hey, this is really hurting me, or this is something I'm really struggling with. So just want to mention that. Be careful. If you're not in a headspace where you can do it, just wait. You're better off putting this off till tomorrow to when it can be clean and safe. And remember, a lot of this work today is I want you to imagine being on the other side and being the receiver of some of this stuff. How do you want to feel and why? And when have you had moments when it was really just wonderful and it was really toxic? I want you to really grab some empathy around that as you're listening today. That's going to matter and motivate you. The other big thing is revealing the real you to them. And when it comes to cultivating great relationships, those who do it the best have some really great values that they've given lots of thought to, and they consciously practice living them out. Probably not perfectly, and that's okay. But here are some values that I can tell you as a relationship therapist and coach. Oh my gosh, guys, these matter almost universally. I don't like to generalize because every client is unique. But when you work with relationship dynamics, there's some universal stuff, I swear, that I think we can all agree, yeah, that's wonderful or that's toxic. So here are some values that I think are very helpful to have if you want to have really great, meaningful, strong, connected relationships that help both of you grow. One is obvious kindness, right? The ability to show kindness, to feel it in our hearts first for ourselves and for others, that there's a belief that's attached to this value, which there often is, that people deserve kindness and compassion. So there's that. The big one here, overarching, is trust. And there's emotional trust, remember, and functional trust. Emotional trust is, can you tell me what you really think and feel and count on me not to act out, blow up, shut down, make your stuff about me. The functional trust is, can you count on me? Am I reliable? And reliability is another value that I wrote down here. We're only as good as our word, folks. Make sure your walk matches your talk. You want them to count on. I think we all want people to count on us. I think we really need to get honest about, should they? When and why or why not? Like, some people are really reliable until they put too much on their plate. And then they can't show up for you because they have just promised 6,000 things to 7,000 people. They can't. It's not that they don't want to, and it's not that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. They just don't know how to say no. Boundaries is another obvious, huge value and belief in boundaries that is really great to have. Detachment and trustworthiness go along with boundaries. But folks who believe in enmeshment and can't detach and let go, that's going to be hard for them to be safe to be around and for essentially for you to trust them. Because if you can't trust someone to say no, you can't trust them. And they can't trust you if you struggle with the same. Another value is acceptance, which goes hand in hand with detachment and boundaries. I think it also has a lot to do with the ability to grieve that you've heard me talk about. or at least they're working on it and they're getting some help with that. Personal growth should be a big one, I think, because if you value personal growth, it's a no-brainer that if you bump into something that is a, bad behavior, poor habit, a struggle with something, like unresolved trauma, what have you, that keeps popping up in today's relationships, because it will, that you just already know, okay, well, I need to work on that. Like there's not a lot of resistance and defensiveness to looking at it and working on it. Another big area that I run into all the time is the ability to compromise and collaborate. The willingness and the want to work with others as opposed to against. It takes a lot of ego strength, and I think it takes a hell of a lot of emotional maturity, ironically, to learn how to negotiate in healthy ways. We learn how to do it as kids when we have to share with our siblings or our friends. You have to share toys, take turns in the game, right, of kickball. But then if we have a lot of wounds around our sense of self and self-esteem and boundary work, we may really struggle with that. We may think that we have to be right or we're not okay. And if we give in, that people won't respect us. And so I do a lot of work with people around them, like, you still get to have your boundaries and you get to negotiate. That keeps you in a wonderful place of choice, but it's respectful of the other. So those are some values, by no means all of them, but I think there's some great ones to kind of think about, like, where am I with those? And what are other ones perhaps that you might want to add? I want you to make this yours. So speaking of living out our values, empathy and compassion need to be present for them to feel heard, seen, loved, and valued by you. And you need these things too. Guys, these are things we all need. They're not wants, they're needs. So not getting them met in relationships is what can cause people to pull away from you, step out of a relationship, shut down, lots of anxiety and depression, things like that. So empathy and compassion. Empathy is not sympathy, remember. Sympathy is you feel sorry for someone, you feel bad for them. And with empathy, you can feel bad for them too, but the difference is you try to put yourself in their shoes. I could feel sympathy for someone and still feel like I'm better than them. It's different. Empathy means there's no judgment, there's no more one up, one down. It's wow, me too, right? That we're all kind of here and we're all kind of equal and we all experience similar things. So some examples of showing empathy and compassion where you validate what's going on for them. You put yourself in their shoes for a moment. You could say, I can imagine it's been so hard and exhausting for you at this point. I mean, look how long you've been going at this. See, what I did there was I put myself in their shoes for a moment. And I kind of imagined, wow, how must that feel, right? And why? It's so crucial to tell them why and validate why it would be exhausting. That just goes one better, I think. Now, it's riskier because you're really guessing here, right? I mean, and that's okay. People don't mind correcting you and they'll do it immediately. And it's not about you being right. Remember, it's about trying to let them know that you get it. You're really trying to understand. And make sure there's proper inflection and tone in your voice. Do this with your heart, guys, not your head. I am so sorry this is happening to you. God, it's got to be awful. As opposed to robotic, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Come on. Remember, how would you want it said to you where someone just really, really, really gets it? Because that's what we want. Empathy is putting yourself in their shoes is first one. Okay, have I ever been in this kind of situation? Like, have I ever been frustrated or pissed off or disappointed or overwhelmed or devastated or in joy or excitement or conflicted feelings, right? I have excitement and anxiety. How must that feel? Remember how that felt. This is a felt sense, guys. It's not just cognitive. And then why it makes sense that they are where they are. okay? And maybe what they need makes sense. Put yourself in their shoes and try your best. I mean, there are some situations where you don't want to say, oh God, I've been there. Me too. No, don't make it about you. Especially with, I think, race relations right now in my country, folks who are not of color are really trying hard to don't do the fake empathy and be real and say, look, I can't imagine what it's like for you. I can't. And I don't want to pretend that I do. I want to try to understand, though. So showing empathy and compassion. Do the no wonder. No wonder you're tired. You've been working all week. Long hours. Stressful hours. No wonder you're excited. Good for you. You must be so proud of yourself. Make sure your inflection matches the best you can. This is very vulnerable. You're going to feel stupid and awkward at first. I know everybody says that. It's like Mary almost laughed because I felt so awkward. It's okay. Anytime we learn something new, it's very stilted until we get used to it and get in the groove and make it real and make it our own. All right, moving on. How else can we show genuine interest in someone? A big thing is making time. And we always say we want to, and sometimes we do, but a lot of times we don't, because there are a lot of choices to make if you're a grown-up on any given day. And the more you have going on, the harder it is, because you have things that are very valuable and competing, like work and family is a great example. Finding balance, making time for them. And this is boundary work, right? It means putting things on your calendar so you remember that they have that event coming up, that they have this situation coming up. Maybe your date night with your partner or your spouse, so that you can prioritize. You're not going to be able to prioritize if you are not proactive on this. So time management plays into this big time. What about their questions when you're in the middle of something? If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about, where you get a million questions when you're trying to get dinner ready. There are ways to do that. You turn towards, you don't make them feel like crap for asking. It's just that right now you understand, like, yeah, I can't do two things at one time really well. So you say, hey, sweetie, can I just have 1 minute? Or you turn towards and you answer them briefly. If they keep going on, say, honey, I really need to get the dinner on the table, and then we'll talk at dinner. What about making time for their feelings, though? They come to you, or they fall down and hurt themselves, or something happens, or they bring up a situation, their feelings, and they could be happy or sad feelings. A couple of obvious things that I want to mention, and some of them you might be better at than others, but don't minimize or gloss over and keep it moving because you're uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, there's work to be done there, And there are valid reasons why, and we've talked about this, why the moment can feel very uncomfortable for you. And being able to tolerate other people's feelings is going to be really hard if you haven't worked through your own. Remember, a lot of this is an inside-out job. So affirming them, validating their feelings. You don't have to agree to validate, remember? Notice. Appreciate. And be in the moment with them. Be sad, be silly. Share some humor, share some fun. The next one is to get vulnerable yourself. Using process comments is the most vulnerable thing that we can do, like you've heard me say. That's where you talk about the here and now with them, in the moment, in the relationship. Things like, I notice you're not looking at me right now. Are you feeling uncomfortable? I feel very anxious with you right now because I'm thinking maybe you're upset with me. Or you asked me something and I owe you an answer and I'm afraid to tell you because I'm afraid there's going to be conflict. These are process comments. We're commenting on the process, right? Whether it's our internal process or the process between you and them in that moment right there. Getting vulnerable means making amends as well. Clean it up every day, if you can. Take an inventory. How did I do? Okay, I was pretty snappy at dinner. Let me go back and make the amend. Now remember, amends are no good without change because that just looks like manipulation after a while. So we do have to figure out, what am I going to work on? Because you can't say sorry 16 times and not work on anything. That's awful. They won't trust you. Another way to get vulnerable, and this is something that we do early on in relationships when we first meet people, but we get lazy and don't do it later, is asking open-ended questions. Where would you love to be 5 years from now? Who are your closest friends right now and why? What are you regretting these days? What are you hopeful for? If you had $1 million, what would you do? These are great questions where people can get into some vulnerable and heartfelt and connecting conversations. It's really cool. There's your best friend conversations that are great to have. The other thing we can do is we can do nice things. We can be helpful. Now, this is not you going and rescuing people. This is not you doing it to get a pat on the back. It's just slowing down and being mindful and being thoughtful. Knowing where your partner is at the moment and thinking about what could I do that would probably feel the best right now. It means you're paying attention, right? You were listening to them last night when they were telling you what they were struggling with. So today, that's going to influence maybe what you do for them. The other way that we connect is we create moments together. Remember we talked about allowing a little while ago. What about creating meaningful ones with meaningful words, like, we got this. I love you. I miss you. I love us. I had a great time tonight. Thank you. What about silly moments? We need to do that. Let go. Relish the hilarious. If you have kids, well, having kids usually means you get all kinds of free entertainment, right? Embrace it. Embrace your moments with your pets if you have them. What about watching cool things together or funny stuff? Do that. Make moments. Set Zoom dates if you have to right now. Do it. Life is short. Create rituals like family meetings, game night, movie night, holiday traditions, date night, getting together with the girls or the guys. And finally, practicing joy, awe, laughter, peace. Maybe sadness when warranted. So being in the moment, making time, turning towards being vulnerable, having good boundaries. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about cultivating good relationships. The biggest thing you're doing here is building trust. And guys, this takes patience and time. You know that. Prioritize this over everything else and you can't go wrong. I want you to keep practicing this. Find areas where you struggle the most and start with one, and then go down the list as you get better and better at each one. The other thing is, I want you to follow your intuition. Try to be as grounded and as present, and have enough quiet time where you can get the good hunches like, maybe I'll do that for them. Or maybe I'll see if they want to get together tonight. Follow your intuition. That is you really tapping into your true self, and it's going to feel so much more genuine. So rather than being anxious, like, oh my gosh, when should I talk to them? And no, don't do that. That ruins it. That's fear. Get your heart straight first. Don't try too hard. Don't be agenda-based. It's going to come off as inauthentic, right? Okay, so finally, if we want to connect more deeply with them, we need to connect deeply with ourselves. You've heard me say before, a lot of this stuff we even talked about thus far today is an inside-out job. The relationship between you and yourself really is going to determine the one you have with others. And the first thing is how you love and value yourself is, and people argue with me on this, is how you're essentially going to value and love others. You can't do it outside in, guys. You can practice kindness, but your belief that people deserve kindness has got to start with you. If deep down you don't believe that you deserve it, it's really going to be hard to think that others do, unless it's, of course, conditional. They're good people. They never make mistakes. They don't yell at me. That's conditional self-worth, conditional deserving. Okay, we project onto others what we secretly feel about ourselves. So inside out job, if you have struggles there and pain, it's good to start working there to heal inside out. You will find you'll be a lot more compassionate and a hell of a lot less judgmental of others as you practice compassion and love and understanding for yourself. Another big thing is self-care and self-talk. Here's a mini refresher because we've gone over this before. Ways you talk to yourself are going to be ways that you are with others. And it's be really difficult to be kind and loving and present if you are so angry at yourself. Remember, when you're having a really shitty day, it's hard to be there for other people. It really is. So saying things to yourself when stuff happens is, it's okay. All right, so I forgot. Okay, so I made a mistake. I didn't do that thing. All right, what am I going to do? Get into the doing, get the plan going. I'm going to commit to it today. Saying things to yourself where you grab context, like, come on, man, it's not been easy. Anyone would have struggled. Let's get back on the horse and let's do this. We can take care of this. We can make it right. And speaking of ways you talk to yourself, where are your affirmations? Affirmations matter. And do them in the present or as if they already are happening or have happened. Like, I am committed to changing. I am changing. I'm lovable and I'm loving towards others. Because remember, if it's hard to be loving towards others, that was wounded for you a long time ago, and you can heal that. I'm more emotionally present these days. Connection really matters to me. I really want to work on this. Get that choice going. How we respect ourselves and reality is another big piece here. Our boundary work. Go back to the boundaries episodes if you need to, so you can really dive in deep there. But basically, a reminder, there are boundaries on the outside and the inside. For the outside, we really can't feel good about ourselves if we aren't facing reality, right? Because we're probably in chaos, anxious, angry, feeling victimized, where our focus is on others and not the truth. And usually part of that truth is, yeah, we brought some of this on ourselves, right? We have responsibility here. It's never all about them. So this is evidenced by, the chaos in our life and our relationships. If that's the case, we have boundary issues and we want to look at those. And what about boundaries on the inside, which are AKA self-discipline? We can't feel good about ourselves if we're sabotaging, if we're not facing things, or at least have a plan to face it, right? Around our health, our money, our behavior, our dreams, our self-care. We have to have self-awareness and accountability around our boundary work, and boundary work is huge and ongoing. And if you have chaos going on, the first place you want to look is, okay, where are the boundary issues? Let me take a look at those and work on those. So being more connected to others first requires being more connected to ourselves. It doesn't mean we beat ourselves up. It just means we do the work that needs to be done to both bring compassion to ourselves and accountability. I promise you, if you continue to work on that combination, you're going to feel so much better. So today we talked about cultivating great relationships with those that we care about. Maybe virtually too right now, and that's okay. We explored and we remind ourselves of the many facets of connecting. And the biggest part of this is being intentional and meaning focus, and work on becoming more and more vulnerable as you go. Being connected means growing great values. It means making sure we're practicing our own personal growth and our own self-care. All right, so hopefully you grab some things today that you can continue to work on or begin working on, and I hope it gives you hope that you can create great relationships and don't give up. And the final thing I want to say is, don't give up even if they're not ready. You'll know. You'll know if they're not ready. Don't give up, especially if it's your loved ones or your kids. Be the healthier one. Just don't have any expectations. Do it for the right reasons. Let go of the outcome. So, thank you for joining me today. May you stay healthy. May you practice lots of care and self-compassion, hold on to hope, and hold on to each other. If you don't already receive the Tribe newsletter, go to the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. Go ahead and sign up for the newsletter. You get it once a week, where you get the bonus downloads for the episode. You can listen to the episode, you can read the blog, and get all the great news. All right, so pay it forward. Keep loving you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.